In a time of financial crisis, the President of the United States does not believe it is a time for profits. Now, that's strange considering that profitable companies create jobs, and the President has promised more jobs in the next 2 years than most people think that he can deliver. And that is our headline on this Friday night, day 11 of the new Obama administration, capitalist hostility. Now, it's certainly true that a fair amount of anger can and should be directed at the Wall Street CEOs whose reckless and excessive behavior have contributed to our current financial crisis. But when the President uses language like he did yesterday, well, it makes us all wonder exactly, well, what are his priorities?
And so, we're going to be having conversations as this process moves forward directly with these folks on Wall Street to underscore that they have to start acting in a more responsible fashion if we are to together get this economy rolling again. There will be time for them to make profits, and there will be time for them to get bonuses. Now's not that time.
Not a time for profits. Now, he should choose his words more carefully, considering that he has appointed socialists to his cabinet and is advocating what amounts to a massive redistribution of wealth. Now, maybe Joe the plumber, maybe he had it right all along. Now, meanwhile, the vice president, well, he isn't helping at all. Now, listen to what he said in a television interview yesterday.
There's not going to be expenditures of bonuses going. I mean, it's been outrageous. I mean, it just offends it.
Rehabilitation.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, it just offends the sensibilities. I mean, I'd like to throw these guys in a brig.
All right, so CEOs should be locked in a brig, but we're going to close down Gitmo and do exactly what with the terrorists who attacked the U.S.? Now, it would seem that the administration's priorities are a little out of whack, don't you think? And joining us tonight with more is former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Good to see you.
Great to be with you.
How are you? First of all, Michael Steele.
It's a great pick. He's going to be a terrific National Committee chairman. He was a good lieutenant governor. He was a good candidate for the U.S. Senate. He's done a great job at GOPAC, and I think he will bring new energy and new drive to the Republican Party in a way that will be very helpful.
You know, you were an outspoken critic of the Polson plan, very outspoken. Got a lot of Republicans angry. You know what? I thought it was excessive spending. Now we're going to $850 billion on paper. If you add the interest, $1.3 trillion. And the Republicans opposed it in the House this week. Conservatives are more energized than I think since you took over in 1995.
I was very impressed. I thought Congressman John Boehner and the new whip, Eric Cantor, and the entire team, they came together. They were unanimous. And, you know, Congressman Louis Gohmert of Texas pointed out that you could eliminate all income tax and all Social Security and Medicare tax to August for the amount of money they want to spend through government and bureaucrats and politicians. Now, my guess is if we had a tax holiday to August, we would jumpstart this economy a heck of a lot better than pouring the money down into a government bureaucracy for politicians to affect it.
Here's the problem the Republicans have. I suspect that in the Senate next week, that if the bill is looks anything like it looks today, maybe 1 or 2 Republican senators will go along. Probably Olympia Snowe and Susan Collins. Beyond that, I think the Republicans hold the line. But they don't have the opportunity to offer alternative bills in the House, and they really don't have the votes to filibuster in the Senate. So are we going to be stuck with this massive...
Well, first of all, I was told they're going to come up with a pretty open rule in the Senate. And so they'll have a chance to offer, for example, a bill to an amendment to require states to clean up fraud in Medicaid before they get more money. They'll be given a chance to offer an amendment to knock out the $2 billion that Chairman Obey put in for his son, which is an extraordinary amount of money for a chairman of the Appropriations Committee to put in for the interest group his son represents. And I think you may see a surprising amount of activity in the Senate as they offer amendment after amendment. And I think the country is turning against this bill as it learns that it's not a stimulus package. It's a big government, big politician, big bureaucrat package that actually less than a third of the money will be spent out this year.
That point, though, is the more people learn about the bill, and we see this in the polling. We pointed this out last night. Gallup poll a couple of days ago, 52% support. Fox poll yesterday, you know, in the low 40s now we have support, and going lower when people find out about the bill. So what does that mean politically? What's going to happen politically? Are the Democrats going to back off? Are they going to retreat at all?
I think you caught it earlier. I mean, for President Obama, to attack the profit motive, to suggest that businesses shouldn't make a profit, and for the vice president to suggest that businessmen ought to be put in jail. I mean, you know, if businessmen ought to go to jail, then what about Chris Dodd and Barney Frank? I mean, what about Charlie Rangel and what about David Obey? I mean, there are a lot of politicians who have a lot of responsibility for what's happened over the last few years. And I think if you're trying to create jobs, this is an old line that Jack Kemp has used for years. If you don't love the job creators, where do you think the jobs are coming from? And I think the president had better slow down and realize if he frightens the entire business community, and if he punishes every small business with a tax increase, he's going to try to govern with no new jobs.
Well, one of the things that's fascinating to me, and we've discussed this, there's an attempt to demonize big business, quote big business, oil companies, pharmaceutical companies, attack free market. They shouldn't be. He actually said, now's not the time for them to make a profit. Well, why are they in business but to make a profit? Why aren't people more angry at government, which is bankrupted?
I think they're getting this is turning very fast.
No, but I mean in terms of government being the answer, but government's bankrupted Social Security and Medicare.
No, but I think people are beginning to look at this and say this is just not going to work. I talked to 3,500 people in Sarasota on Wednesday, and I was amazed at the number of people who got it and who understood that this is absurd. It started, as you and I have talked about several times, with the appointment of a Secretary of the Treasury who cheated on his taxes for 4 straight years.
It was an honest mistake, a little hiccup, Mr. Speaker. It was no big deal.
All I'm saying is the average American gets it.
Yeah.
And then it came up with the new rule that said no lobbyist, except, of course, the #2 guy in defense and the chief of staff of Treasury.
The Treasury. Look, I would be negligent if we didn't talk a little bit about national defense. Closing down Gitmo, we'll have our Gitmo All-Stars again tonight, featuring who are the people that might end up in prisons near our audience. But he's also, Robert Gibbs wouldn't use the term war on terror. We're not going to have enhanced interrogations now any longer. We see this letter that's being written to the Holocaust denier, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. We're going back to a pre-9/11 mentality.
If this administration, which of course wants to have as its Attorney General one of the people who was involved in giving pardons to many, many terrorists in the late 90s.
Eric Holder.
Eric Holder. I mean, if this administration is going back to the Clinton era of terrorists as criminals, this country is going to be in much greater danger in the next 2 or 3 years because that policy did not work and it will not work. And I think people have a good reason to be worried about the overall tenor of the way they're trying to move back to civil liberties matter more than protecting America.
All right, you're going to be back later in the program with your wife. But I don't want to tell everybody what you